It was another late-night shift for Daniel, driving his taxi down quiet streets that seemed to stretch endlessly into the dark. The world outside was muted, cloaked in fog and silence, with only the occasional streetlight breaking through the gloom. Daniel had driven through nights like this for years, picking up passengers, dropping them off, repeating the routine until the hours blended together. He thought he'd seen it all, every kind of passenger imaginable. But tonight would be different. The clock on the dashboard read 2:17 a.m. when he spotted the figure by the side of the road. A man stood under the flickering glow of a streetlight, dressed sharply in what looked like an old-fashioned suit. He raised his hand slowly, signaling for the taxi. Daniel almost drove past him, the strange stillness of the man triggering a moment of hesitation. But something about the way he stood there, as if he'd been waiting for years, compelled Daniel to pull over. Rolling down the passenger side window, Daniel offered a tired smile. "Where to, sir?" His voice was soft, almost melodic. "Oakwood Street, number 23. Daniel nodded, noting the address out of habit, and unlocked the doors. The man slid into the back seat and closed the door with measured precision. As the taxi began to move, silence filled the car. Daniel cast a glance at his passenger in the rearview mirror. The man sat upright, his posture straight as an arrow, staring out at the foggy expanse beyond the window. He didn't fidget like most passengers, didn't scroll through a phone, didn't even adjust his suit. He seemed frozen in time, disconnected from the modern world. The air inside the car felt colder than it should have, even with the heater running. Daniel shivered and tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He told himself it was nothing, just the chill of the night, or maybe the exhaustion creeping in. But even so, something about the passenger gnawed at him. His clothes looked off somehow, not just outdated but pristine, as if they hadn't been worn for decades. Still, it wasn't Daniel's job to ask questions. Just drive, follow the GPS, get the fare. That was the job. After a few miles of silence, Daniel cleared his throat, hoping to break the tension in the air. "Rough night?" he asked casually. The man didn't turn to look at him. His gaze remained fixed on the passing landscape. When he finally replied, his voice was distant, as though coming from somewhere far away. "Returning home." Daniel frowned. The answer was strange, almost rehearsed. But before he could say anything else, the man spoke again. "Drive carefully, Mr. Sinclair. The roads can be unpredictable." His heart skipped a beat. How does he know my name? He hadn't introduced himself, hadn't mentioned it to the passenger. A cold sweat began to form on his brow, but he forced himself to stay composed. "Yeah, I'll keep that in mind," Daniel stammered, suddenly keenly aware of the empty stretch of road ahead. No other cars, no people, just fog curling like ghostly tendrils around the headlights. Minutes passed, stretching into an eternity. When the taxi finally arrived on Oakwood Street, Daniel felt relief wash over him. He slowed the car and approached number 23, the house looming like a shadow in the night. The building was old, with peeling paint and boarded-up windows. Its lawn was overgrown, the gate rusted as though the world had left it behind. "Well," Daniel said, forcing a professional tone, "looks like we're here. That'll be—" He trailed off. His eyes darted to the rearview mirror, and his stomach dropped. The back seat was empty. For a moment, Daniel couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He turned sharply, clutching the steering wheel, searching the back seat as if expecting the man to reappear. But he wasn't there. The door hadn't opened. The seatbelt was still fastened, untouched. The leather seat bore no dents, no sign that anyone had ever sat there. And when Daniel looked outside, the pavement was wet from the dew, but there were no footprints leading away from the car. The man was gone, completely, impossibly gone. Daniel fumbled with his seatbelt, his hands trembling as he stumbled out of the taxi. A cold wind rushed past him, carrying the unmistakable weight of something unnatural. He moved toward the gate, squinting in the dim light to read the small metal plaque mounted there. The worn words sent a chill down his spine. "In loving memory of James Carter, died 50 years ago." Daniel felt his heart pound against his ribs. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. He wasn't driving a ghost, was he? That was ridiculous. That couldn't be real. But his gut told him otherwise, the unsettling cold that lingered in the air wrapping itself around him like a second skin. Suddenly, the wind howled louder, rustling the leaves and rattling the gate. Daniel turned quickly, his eyes scanning the shadows. Nothing, just the empty street. He exhaled shakily and leaned against his car. Then it happened. A whisper, soft and chilling, emerged behind him. "Thanks for the ride." Daniel whipped around, his breath catching in his throat. No one was there, only the shadows shifting under the flickering streetlights. Without another thought, he scrambled back into his taxi, his hands fumbling to turn the ignition. The car roared to life, and Daniel slammed the accelerator, speeding away from Oakwood Street as fast as the tires could take him. His pulse thudded in his ears, his knuckles turning white against the steering wheel. As the house disappeared in the rearview mirror, Daniel swore he caught the faint outline of a figure standing in the glow of the streetlight, watching him leave. By the time he reached the main road, Daniel was shaking. He pulled the taxi over to the side, trying to catch his breath. His hands trembled as he gripped the phone, hesitating before he finally dialed. He called dispatch, a staticky voice answering on the other end. "Another passenger tonight, Sinclair?" the dispatcher asked casually. Daniel's voice was weak, nearly breaking. "Not taking any more calls to Oakwood Street. Ever." Since that night, Daniel never drove Oakwood Street again. He avoided it religiously, convincing himself it was just the stress of the job, just a trick of the mind. But deep down, he knew better. Stories began to circulate among other drivers, legends of ghosts hitching rides late at night. And some said, if you stopped near number 23, you might still see him. A man dressed in an old-fashioned suit, waiting silently under the flickering glow of the streetlights, waiting for someone to take him home. To this day, Daniel wonders if the passenger will ever truly leave, or if he's there on some quiet, fog-laden night just waiting for the next taxi to stop.